Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and it's SoulSaint here, and I wanted to do something a little special for those of you guys that so happened to whale out. And in particular, there was a champion that was offered amongst all of the players, depending on what your level was, where you'd be able to receive a champion that basically would be based off of your level. And I think amongst them were like Necmo. I think I saw Kaimar. I think I saw Duidan or Duidan. I don't know how you want to say his name, but yeah. So those champions, like Duidan, I think is for like the earlier level accounts. If I can find the information here, I'll probably show you guys real quick. But the way that I understood it was that based on your level, yeah, perfect. So based on your level, Duidan with the Runic, which is this champion right here, and I'm going to do a breakdown on each one of them, and I'm going to showcase one in particular that you may like. Duidan between levels 1 to 50, Ragash if you're between 51 to 80, Necmothar if you're between 81 to 98, Prince Kaimar 99 to 100, right? So all those champions have something unique that makes them pretty good. Duidan being well known for one of the first earlier iterations of champions that had taunt. And in addition to that, he had a shield, which may be useful for something like maybe Shoguns in terms of like force targeting, maybe even stun targeting. If you're thinking about it from a clan boss perspective, there's a lot of flexibility with how taunt works, right? And then of course you have Ragash, who we're gonna do a breakdown of today. He's the one that I want to showcase for you guys. I so happen to have him already. Really strong defensive nuker. Keep that in mind. Defensive nuker who has a self-increased defense buff for himself, which means he's basically self-sufficient. He doesn't need any buffer to get him going. Increased or decreased defense, which is like his big AOE. That also provides a stun, and that's booked to 100% for both of them once it's fully booked there. And then in addition to that, strengthen, increased speed, and perfect veil on the champion, right? And then he also does it for the champion that has the highest attack. So very complementary, or a full focused type nuker champion. You know what I mean? Like he's very good in that regard, right? And then of course you have Necmo and Kaimar. I think they didn't need no introductions, but pretty much for the longest short of it, one of the best Hydra champions in the game is Necmo. Increased speed, turn meter, grants himself an extra turn where he can do decreased speed, leech, which are two very key important debuffs on Hydra type champions or Hydra fights in general. And then decreased attack, great everywhere. Speed lead champion. And then, of course, like that, his turn meter each time a debuff on an enemy is removed, transferred, or expired is all valuable. This guy goes fast. He takes your team, makes them fast, and he puts the team down as the enemy team down as you go along. You know, very strong champion. And then, of course, one of the best resetters, and to this day forever eludes me, is Prince Kaimar, the guy that can strip buffs, put sleeping in the process, as well as cooldown, resets, filling turn meter. I would love to try him out in Fighting That Hard, by the way, which I did a video on not too long ago. Very strong champion in terms of being able to enabling very fast in arena, and then of course really strong speed stats, speed stats and just base stats in general to like complement them, right? Now, all those champions are cool, but Ragash is the one that I have, and the grass is the one that I'm going to slam with today, okay? There's going to be a lot of places you can use someone like Ragash. I'm going to start with the PVE, but the bigger area that you're going to see a lot of love with is going to be, like, in particular, the PvP side is where I really see he shines. But that's not to say he can't slam in the PvE side. So, for example, if you are not familiar with something like Fire Knight, he actually used to be a part of my original team for Stage 25, and that incorporated using champions. I don't know if I still have the preset or not, but basically the long and short of it would be something around the lines of this, where you would have your wave clear team, right, which would be like Seer, maybe a resetter. You would take out Ragash, for example, and put in something like Newt in there in place of like Ragash. But basically your wave clear champions, and he actually would be a part of that, by the way. My original team so happened to be something around the lines of this. And what would happen is I would offset buffs, and how I would do it is I would basically start the wave off with them both providing buffs, or maybe he would skip a turn or she would skip a turn, and then with decreased defense and weaken, because we would cycle into her ability twice, for example, I would be able to nuke with buffs and then, basically clear the waves. And I'll do a quick demonstration. We'll sacrifice some energy to show you guys here real quickly. But basically, the long and short of it is that we want to get a lure to the end of the wave. You can provide some buffs here, skip the turn here so that she doesn't, because we're not ready to do it. But just alone, if we were able to snipe these guys all down, you know, Ragash into the next wave could control them, giving us an opportunity to kind of go to the next waves, right? You would see something around those lines. And then, of course, him providing increased speed as a part of his A3 allows you to pick up the momentum so that you can cycle into your abilities faster, or when you're in the boss fight, he'd be able to push you guys into being able to do a little bit more there too as well. Now, funny little caveat, there was a regeneration style build between Allure and Ragash where they could duo Fire Knight 25, and that was kind of cool too as well, right? In addition to that, being able to use Ragash in the same concept for like a wave clear team, he does really good setup for someone like Seer, right? Like you'd be able to use him to control the waves or to enable Seer's A3 by giving more buffs, right? So it's the same concept, but just more in a wave-like format instead of focusing on a boss towards the end, right? It's very similar, very comparable in that sense, right? And I thought that was like a great way to get some value out of him from a PvE standpoint. I did try using him in Hydra. There was some times where I did use him at least like in the normal. If you have the complementary gear to do it, he would be like a great champion to not only provide speed, increase speed, which is probably key, but more importantly, decrease defense and then just extra complementary damage, right? So that's a great way to like get some value out of him too, just as like a regular damage dealer in a sense with a complementary decrease defense. But the biggest area, and this is probably where I enjoy using him the most, and he is my prime time champion, for lack of better words. He is very, very strong at being able to basically pop open almost anybody. And in particular, since he's a defensive-based nuker, which means that, you know, in order to bring out his damage, you're looking to embellish into his defensive stat, which means that he's also going to be a little more tankier in a sense. I love using him in a go second style team format, right? So I have basically 3 support champions and one that's kind of like a hybrid support offensive style champion in Necrit. Yes, they're very, very strong. So like, you know, this is, you know, very, very over the top, but I would say that like, composition-wise, the concept's pretty much there. You know, you have champions that can enable Ragash to get through to fight and do well in the wave. So I'm actually going to do a quick run here so you can kind of see what he can do in terms of potential. A lot of times the way I like to do things is that, like, depending on what I'm going against, especially if there's, like, multiple champions that can provide some form of, you know, safety, right? So, like, you know, 2 rezzers, 2 healers, like a Python could be an example in place of one of these 2 champions. Like, maybe you drop the Deacon in favor of that. You know, something around those lines, right? I would be able to take my team and basically do my first wave. My first rotation in would be like a setup. So, like, I could do, especially since I know I'm going to get neck return, right? I could either go for nuke and just straight up hit him, or I can, you know, do a delay setup and see if we can, you know, prepare for the next wave, since what I'm missing here in this particular team is, or on him right now at the moment, is his increased defense, right? So I want to get the most bang for my buck out of it. And the best way I could do it is like using Necrit, for example, which forces him to use his default skill. Whoever, you know, he has his ally attack on will join in the attack. So in particular, I'll use Ragash. Ragash will go in. Unfortunately enough, I guess my guy's geared up pretty well to a point where he one-taps people. So, you know, he got the increased defense on his kid, as well as the extra protection, which in a go second team is never bad, right? Which means that when I go into this next turn, if I don't one-shot them, they're gonna be pretty close. And to be honest with you, from like a nuker standpoint, I have a lot of room for growth on my account, right? I'm gonna miss a turn because I got feared by good old Madam Sayers, but you know, our whole purpose of this go second team is that we take our time, we can get through the damage that they're providing. We have a lot of control, a lot of support to get us through. He did provide a decreased defense, which actually does hurt our damage output, believe it or not. But I think we're going to be okay because Ragash is coming up. And even though we lost it, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the one who's kind of being the most problematic for us, which is this one right here. And look at that. Just with this A1 alone, he's doing a lot of damage. And that was with decreased defense, mind you, right? I also have him in polymorph, which is also kind of nice. I think it didn't get through any of them because it got polymorphed here. Basically keeping the team alive. He's really, really defensive in nature, so like being able to get there is like really, really nice here, right? So I'm taking a lot of damage on the way here, and I'm still okay, you know? Like, I don't feel under duress in any nature, you know? I don't feel like I'm under pressure too much to a point where I have to worry about it. We are taking our fair share of damage, but at the end of the day, you know, I'm still healthy to go. And that's something that Ragash does a very, very good job in. He's very, very, very tanky because of the fact that he's a defensive nuker in general, right? So, like, being able to get there isn't as much of a problem because we're just able to live through it. And we're banking on that existing bit of damage. I'm going to go ahead and try doing the Ceres again. being able to get us through it. And this is just A1s, you know, you haven't been able to see the power of the A2. Now, I think I wanted to show you guys in terms of like his survivability, in terms of a longevity standpoint, he's there, you know what I mean? He's doing very, very good. And like I said, my gear is not the greatest in terms of like what you could get to with Live Arena, but just to give you like a little bit of an idea, 133,000 off of that A1, he's hitting, and there's plenty of overhit. I actually, as a matter of fact, I was doing some optimizations, and I can actually add on a lot more stats to him, and that's coming, you know, down the road. We'll use another example with our Go Second style team, but we'll try to see if we can get a little bit more offensive. We are going to go against a negative affinity champion, so it's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle, but look at what we're going to do to this Python as the fight goes on. We're going to be able to provide a lot of damage in there and just really capitalize on the fact that he's tanky. So, like, whatever these guys got going on, I don't think they're going to stop us. Now, this is another reason why I like opening up with that A3. You know, you see some champions that somehow get this, like, stone skin effect or whatever the case may be. I'm going to go ahead and open up with the A1 here because I'm going to go ahead and just start lacing on some damage. Look at this. On a champion that naturally would be built up tanky and had increased defense and now has strength in, my Ragash is still chunking away at him, right? So what I'm trying to get at is that this guy, as a nuker, just straight up nuker, if you build him the right way, is a problem. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. This dude is Timothy. You know what I mean? Like, we make that joke all the time in my stream and whatnot, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, this guy can hit. And I haven't even opened up with my A2 yet. I noticed that he dropped a decreased defense here, so maybe we can get a one-shot if this guy's squishy enough. Let's see how we do. So we did weak head, but look at what happened to a neutral affinity champion right there. Had increased defense and strengthen, and we still chunked. And I mean, like, we're whittling this guy down. Like, if we can get rid of this these reses here, I mean, this fight's over, basically, in a summary of words, right? So he did res the one up. I'm gonna go for the one that still has the res up, so now we got some time to crack down on the sill, which means that we'll be able to potentially secure this win, which is just a matter of time. No weak hits, which is good, which means that we're still kind of cooking around the health of the champion here that's in. It looks like this isn't a relentless set still, so that's kind of interesting, but as long as we keep pressure here, I foresee us kind of getting through the last little bit we need here. So thankfully enough, I am at a decent enough speed, and that's something that I've been looking to improve in my build in general, is that I want to get him faster but not compromise his damage, right? So looking into it, it's just basically a matter of time. I can put this on auto, I can disappear, go for my cup of coffee, which I'm going to do real quick, and the fight's over, right? And that's one great way to use them. Now, there's other ways you can also incorporate it, and this is kind of going more into like PvP mechanics and PvP styles. And now, let me talk about his build a little bit, and maybe you guys can get an example. I have him set up in a Savage or Lethal, which is kind of like the equivalent to Savage, just a little bit more upgraded. And then I also have him in Cruel. Cruel, I would be willing to discard for something like maybe Defiant, because a lot of times in a protection style comp like that, where you have a lot of mitigation, the only way you're going to be able to get through it, or the way you're going to be able to press through it, is either through champions that could ignore defense, so like counters to accurate, like Supreme Elhain, for example, or Georgid. But basically, he's going to be protected a lot of times, and a lot of times enemies are going to try to do like a lot of AoE damage, so like maybe Defiant would be better in that regard, and it also increases his damage output because it's a defensive set. You know, increase plus defense means he's going to hit harder, right? So that might be a way that I would maybe consider alterations to this build. But the idea goes is that I'm building him to ignore percent defense, so we're going for a nuker style approach, right? So ignore percent defense is basically the big key about it, and then in particular a healthy pool of like speeds. I am now in the realm of where my builds are just going to be pushing a little bit more, and I can tell you, like, from a hypothetical sense, I haven't made the change yet because I want to get some glyphs, and then I want to glyph during CVC, which is tomorrow. So maybe we'll see a change in the build, but I wanted to get this out to you guys going into tomorrow, so you can kind of see, a little bit of value as to why he's so good, right? So a decent amount of speed. You want to get that 100% crit rate as much as possible. Basically 100%, and then after that, you know, crit is irrelevant for you in terms of crit rate. But then you want a healthy spread of crit damage and then defense. Now, he also benefits from having accuracy because you want to land that debuff so he can do more damage, or your team can do more damage, or that stun, so that'll give you a little bit more time to either have breathing room. You would be surprised at how much that stun helps me out in Live Arena, or in areas where I just need that little extra breathing room to pick my team back up if we took a lot of damage, or to give me enough breathing room so that I can lock out the team, you know, basically, you know, while they're stunned, I killed their support champion that was left, and then now it's just a battle of attrition, which I win because my team is still alive, and I slowly whittle them. They lose a whole turn as a result, right? So the accuracy actually does play a little bit of a part to it. Now, I think 200 accuracy is probably like more than enough to at least control the nukers, because they're not going to be built with resistance in mind most of the times. But when you're looking to stun maybe support champions, like for example my Duchess, who I did make some recent changes to, she's a little bit higher, you know, having a little bit more resist is going to be a little bit more priority for them, right? So being able to crack through their defenses and their resistance, you may take that up a notch. I'm actually aiming for a minimum of now 300 with higher stats above defense and crit damage within faster speed. So like that's my next step. Now, in terms of skills, we already talked about how that works. Blessings wise, and there's been some like back and forth between discussions with me and my community, as well as me, you know, observing other high-end PvPers about the value of like what blessings would be good for a defensive nuker or defensive champions in general, whether that's support or not. And I'll give two that I think would be valuable for someone like Ragash. Number one would be temporal chains, and here's why. Decreasing the enemy's speed for every active buff they are under, except for buffs placed at the start of the round. So like for example, if they have like an enemy Necrid or Duchess or Siphi, where they get like multiple buffs, every single time they put one, you're getting like a, you know, speed decrease, right? And then whenever they receive their third buff, instantly increases their turn meter to a certain amount on a 4-turn cooldown, right? So those values become a little bit better, right? So as the fight's going on, as they're trying to protect them, they're losing speed, right? And then on top of that, having defense, great for Ragash. We're looking to bring out more damage from him. Accuracy, great for Ragash. We're looking to stun more of our enemies so that we can get more damage out, right? The HP is a little bit of a throwaway, but still, nevertheless, it never hurts to have a little bit more. It means you're tankier, right? And then on top of that too, at the very end, defense, speed, and accuracy. All stats we're looking to improve, right? Then, from a control standpoint, and this is where I'm currently using him, although it did get nerfed recently in the lower levels, it's pretty much still the same at the higher levels, but on the lower levels it's a little bit weaker. They did make some changes to polymorph, which makes it a little bit harder for players to get sheeped, and it's very accuracy dependent. We are building accuracy in him, so there's no loss there. Defense as a stat, great for Ragash. HP, not so much. Resistance, not so much, unless you are trying to get a little bit more resistance against your enemies. It's never a bad thing in PvP, right? So like those are still complementary, but not a primary focus for him in terms of being the focus of a nuker. You want him to nuke, right? So these stats don't really benefit him as much, is where I would see something like temporal chains being a little bit more valuable. But the control more than anything is what really gives players a lot of value, you know? You're still going to get that speed and defense and that complementary HP and resistance, but the control factor of it, which is predicated upon accuracy, is something that we are building into anyway. So like it's a double dip, right? Where the value of polymorph is okay. But those would be like two go-to ones right off the rip that I would say like have some very good value, not only from a passive standpoint, but also from just a stat line point. It really does improve it. And like I'm only at level 2 right now on my polymorph, and I got 400 extra defense. That adds up. You know, if it wasn't for that, I'd be at 4.6. With my next build that I got going up to 6, I think I got like in the higher range, like 6.6, 6.4-ish with glyphing, you know. Take off, I'd be 6K, you know, like that's actually almost a whole half of 1,000 points, and that adds up. That could be the make or break it between you not landing a complete one-shot tap, you know, in your A2 to, all right, you're dead. You know, it's a great way to basically get ever so closely. So like those are some really good means to do so, right? And then on top of that too, if you're going to use them as a lead role whenever it comes to your aura, you know, you want to get some value out of that extra defense to make him even stronger. Having the way that polymorph works is actually really, really good for him, because it goes in order the way that like the debuffs, if people are AoEing, it goes in order of lead role, position 1, 2, 3, right? So for example, it'd probably be better for me to put like my Python on the very, very back, so that every single time like the Ceres I went against, for example, the chance it hit Duchess first, and that's when polymorph activated, which means that everybody else didn't get the debuffs, right? And that's kind of like why positioning may be important, and having him in polymorph in the lead role whenever you're trying to get more defenses may be valuable. Now for me, I'm valuing speed because I'm trying to pick up the pace a little bit more of my team, and using that to compensate for the fact that like my Ragash isn't at 200 or faster is one way that I'm kind of compensating for it through this aura. But there's been many times in live arena where my Duchess gets banned and I have these plus maybe like my other nuker, which would be like Trunda, for example, and I put him in the speed role, and you see like the order priority like this way. So like polymorph factors are still in play. I'm getting the extra defensiveness for the team, including Ragash, so you can hit harder, and you know, polymorphs are lined up perfectly. So like, you kind of have an idea of how I'm using it. Well, with that being said, this guy is a monster. He is by far one of my favorite, if not my favorite spirit champion, maybe next to Duchess right now, as one of the best defensive nukers in the game. I think he's pretty much in the top 3 range conversation. A lot of people value Haruma right now as one of the top defensive nukers, and it's very understandable in the meta that we're in. She's very, very strong against like champions that are demon spawn based, which like Duchess is very meta right now. So being able to mitigate damage from them, including like your Kandra Fawn, you know, as an example, Hefrak as another one. Like basically, you know, they cannot inflict critical hits, which means she's way more tankier against those teams. She also doesn't land weak hits against demon spawn teams, so like those champions. So like, even though Duchess is a positive affinity against Haruma don't care, right? Well, think about it this way. Ragash isn't a demon spawn champion. He's also positive affinity. Let's go toe-to-toe. And you'll be surprised at times where I've won and lost, I'm not gonna lie, but I've won against a Haruma because my Ragash stacks up very, very well to her. Not only does he have his own enabling kit, which increases his defense, but he's positive affinity, and he's much more likely to land his skills against Harumas that are defensively nuker based. And then positive affinity, it's going to take her a while, especially if she weak hits a lot, to a point where he's not getting hit as hard. And that matchup, when we're going 100% HP to 100% HP, may lean a little bit more favor from an affinity standpoint towards Ragash, right? So like, he actually is a good matchup against Haruma in that sense from an affinity standpoint, and being another defensive nuker is very, very good. Now, against like neutral affinity nukers that are defensive, like for example, one that I did use a lot was my Solus. It's pretty much just kind of like more of an even approach. Whoever can control whoever better while dishing out the damage would probably be the one that wins the fight, right? But even that being said, say for instance you provoke Solus, I'm still getting that increased defense for my A1, and I'm still doing decent damage. You saw how I pretty much wiped out a team. Even though I was being controlled a lot, I was able to wipe out most of the enemy teams that I was going against with just the A1 alone. Still, you know, he's a force to be reckoned with. He's gonna give any champion that has you know, a desire to go toe-to-toe with him that is either neutral affinity or worse affinity to him, he's going to give them a run for their money. If not, he's going to clap some cheeks. So with that being said, Ragash is a great champion to go for, and I hope you guys look forward to having. If you did win your tournament for him, 1, congratulations to you, whale. Number 3, if you're looking for ways to do it, I think this is a great showcase to kind of show you some of the value you have for him. With that being said, I hope you like this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended.
So it's 100 on the score.